afternoon, Greenville Mayor Knox White is urging everyone to take care of each other during this bitter cold that's ahead of us. Fox Carolina's Ashley Garrett spoke with him.
Mayor, we were just talking about the severity surrounding this dangerous cold that's on the way to not only Greenville, the upstate, but the mountains too. And when you heard the news of how cold it's going to be, you said it brought something to mind. What exactly did it bring to mind?
Yeah, I recall that when I heard that this is an historic cold weather event, as cold as it was, and I think the year was 1983. We'll actually remember that. And I recall that during that time, two residents of the city of Greenville, two older residents, elderly people, who only lived a block apart, died on the same night of the cold. And it's particularly tragic that everyone in their families thought that someone else was checking on them, and no one checked on them. And I recall that the fire chief at the time found that the temperatures inside the two houses was something like 16 degrees or something. So cold can be a very insidious thing, and it brings to mind the need for people to check on people and to be intentional about it, and don't just take for granted that somebody else is going to do it. So we have programs where the police department and the fire department will check in on people, but we need to know who they might be. And maybe more importantly, we all need to do our part in checking on our neighbors.
When folks watch this piece, they are likely going to have elder folks in their families, their grandparents and things of that nature. I'm just wondering, when the news broke of the two elderly people that died, you said in the 80s, what kind of went through your mind when you heard that?
Well, I remember just how awful everybody felt about it, especially the family members. It was just tragic on so many levels. The two people died, and they only lived a block or so apart. So people who lived in their neighborhood felt terrible that they hadn't checked in on these people, their own neighbors, and the members of the family, of course, felt terrible. They had miscommunication about somebody else. They thought someone else had checked in on another member of the family. So it just goes to mind that people should check on neighbors and anybody you think. If you don't do it yourself, you can call the police department in the city of Greenville anyway, and we'll check on them for you. When we talk about intense cold weather, there's a lot of attention on people who are homeless, and we have warming stations and a lot of people involved in helping homeless people find a safe and warm place to go. And maybe we don't think enough about people who are not homeless. They have homes, but perhaps they're not well insulated. Perhaps no one's checking in on them, and that's the one that kind of fall in the cracks. And so we need to remember those people too. You're so busy, especially the Christmas season, and everybody's, goodness, we're all so busy doing things. And here we are with a weather emergency. And in one sense, you might say, well, it's cold weather, it's Christmas time. But this is not just cold weather. This is an intensely and dangerous situation we're in. And we do have people who are vulnerable, who are living by themselves, and it's just extremely important we be mindful of that.
Big takeaways from this interview is to be mindful, to have conversation, and really just care about not only yourself and your loved ones, but your neighbors too.
Don't just leave it to someone else. I mean, be actively thinking about this. If everyone would do that, we can avoid a tragedy. But we've seen tragedy in the past. We don't want to see it again.